Hi, guys. I'm Jamie,
I'm Ethan.
and we are the Bloody Essentials podcast. Nina couldn't join us tonight, but that's okay. We have some other really exciting guests to bring on in a minute. Just want to thank everybody for listening, for commenting, giving us feedback, and just sharing the movies that you love. If you do like what we're doing, go ahead and subscribe, share us around. Even reach out to us and recommend a movie sometime. We really love to hear from you guys. Also, big shout out to our Patreons, Rick Swift and David Green. You guys are awesome. We appreciate everything that you do for us, and you're just really great people with good taste in horror movies. So
There
can't
you
get enough
go.
of them.
We appreciate you guys. All right, guys, we are going to be at the Chicago Film Fest May 16th through the 18th, located at the Logan Theater here in Chicago. So come out and see us, say hi, have a drink with us. It's going to be a great weekend of independent horror, not only from people in the Chicagoland area, but all the way around. It is child friendly, except for Saturday.
What?
Saturday is the adult day, so look them up online and come out and see us. We are also going to be at Flashback Weekend, August 1st through the 3rd. Come on out, say hi, meet Stitch. I guess you could come out and, like meet Robert Englund and stuff too. I guess he's going to be there too, but, we're going to be there. So come on out and say hi, guys.
Awesome. Yeah, that's going to be a really great time. Okay, so tonight we have some special guests with us here. We have some of the creative minds behind the movie Field of Screams, which looks really, really awesome. So let me bring them on here. We have Alex Mode and Jordan Parsons. Hey guys, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, thank you guys for having us.
Absolutely. Thanks for being on.
Definitely. So, before we kind of get into Field of Screams, I'd love to get to know you guys a little bit. Tell me kind of what got you interested in horror and maybe a couple of your favorite movies.
Sure. I can go first if that's good with you, Jordan. So I got into horror a little later, I think, than a lot of people. My parents absolutely hated horror movies. So it was kind of my little rebellious streak where, like, when I'd stay home sick from school, I would like go on and see like what I could get on, like, I don't know, like Direct TV, like whatever they had available. Or I think like the very first one I watched was like the old school Halloween, when you could still pretty easily find full movies on YouTube.
Yeah.
So I like watched that like late one night in my bedroom. But yeah, it was really cool. It was like one of those like forbidden things, and so like that added to like the coolness of it. And then as I got into college, I just like discovered so much more about horror, like international horror and a lot of indie stuff. And then Evan, my co-director and co-writer, he and I met in college, and he grew up making like low budget, like 80s inspired movies with a few friends of his out of Ottumwa that run like a production studio, Ottumwa, Iowa. And so he and I kind of fed each other's like love for horror, and that's kind of how I got into it. And some of my favorites right now are probably like Mandy, and someone asked me this the other day, and I totally couldn't think of anything other than Mandy. But like the original Halloween is a classic for me. I really like that one.
Yes, great movie. It's my favorite movie.
Those are good picks, and I know what you mean about the kind of like forbidden joy of horror as a kid, like walking in the video store. That's the section I wanted to be in so bad, but I wasn't supposed to. What about you, Jordan?
Yeah, so my like horror journey, I'm trying not to talk too long because there's like a lot of stuff with it, but I kind of grew up, my parents are kind of the opposite. My mom really liked horror stuff, and my dad liked it maybe a little bit less. So I watched some stuff growing up, and some of this counts as horror, but like I was raised on the X-Files. And then my mom raised me on Stephen King and stuff like that. So I kind of grew up with it around me, but I also like had a lot of nightmares growing up and even like into my adult life. And I actually processed this with a therapist like a couple years ago. But when I was an adult, I hated watching horror stuff because I was so scared of being scared, and it was linked to some other things.
Sure.
And actually, I was thinking a couple years ago that I kind of want to get back into watching horror movies because I love horror movies, but they messed with my sleep. They did stuff like that. Like I want to start watching them more. I want to like get involved with stuff. And pretty soon after that, I got cast in Field of Screams, and so it was just a cool little coincidence thing. And so it was really cool to get back into horror stuff kind of through acting in one and getting to be behind the scenes. And I love the horror. I love the different things you're able to process through the medium. And it's a fun one. It's a fun one it's cool. All genres are like this, but it's fun because some horror, it's a great fun thing just to watch with a group of people. Some horror, it's a good thing to process trauma and stuff like that. And it's such a, large possibility within the realm of the genre. And as far as I suck at favorites, I'll stick favorites. Yeah. Within horror stuff. This isn't a movie. One of my sisters, Abigail, she's a big horror fan, so she's kind of been feeding me stuff to kind of get me into the horror thing. One of her favorite shows that she showed me was The Haunting of Hill House. It was good for me because I love like character driven stuff that deals with like heavy themes. And she's like, I think you'll like this because it's horror stuff, but it's also kind of the type of genre character stuff you like. And I adored it. And then I'll just do another TV show again. X-Files is like a weird, like nostalgic thing because I grew up watching it with my family and stuff. And it's been on. We have a antenna, so we get some local channels here, and the X-Files is on like one of the local channels. And so every now and then we'll just flip it on at night, and I get to show Jen, my mate, that because she hasn't watched it, so I get to show her some episodes and stuff, and it's so
What a treat to be able to like show somebody X-Files to for the first time. Like I wish I could see X-Files for the first time again.
I know. That would be a wonderful. And it's one of those. It's so. I want to like go back and actually watch through it all at some point. But it's an older show, which means there's so many episodes. But it's delightful. It's wonderful.
So good.
Do you guys have a specific subgenre of horror that you like and a specific subgenre of horror that you dislike?
That's a really good question. I really like, I don't even know. I really like weird horror. Like I like stuff that doesn't necessarily follow the beats of like established stuff. Like I love a good slasher, and I love a good like psychological horror, but I like stuff that's just like weird and that catches you off guard and is like really unexpected. Which isn't really a genre of horror so much as it's like something I look for. I find it does kind of come up, I feel like, more with psychological stuff, which is really fun because I do really like that. Least favorite, like as I've gotten older, like I can't handle gore as much personally, and I don't know what it is. I just like I noticed I stopped being able to handle like a lot of gore or like a lot of intense stuff like all at the same time. Like I tried to watch I think it's called I Saw the Devil. Really, really great movie. I couldn't make it through because it just was like too much all at the same time. So just stuff that's like, I don't know, like very like hardcore gore is not totally my favorite right now.
Okay.
Yeah, and for me, I'm not knowledgeable enough to know like a lot of the subgenres, but I do know. Again, I guess going off the Hill House thing, my sweet spot is horror that is pretty explicitly using the supernatural realm to kind of wrestle through mental health stuff and addiction and trauma. Like I just think that was something that my sister opened me up to and showing me some of the horror stuff, which is how you could use it for that. And I think it's an incredible tool to process that stuff and to actually like lead to healing and stuff. And then least favorite. I don't know. I think maybe the hardest for me to watch. They can be some of my favorite, but like things that just mess with me are like psychological sexual horror stuff. It sits with me in a way where it goes, which is because it's doing its job. But it's one of those that it's like I think it's the hardest for me to watch, and the one that anything that's difficult for me, I sometimes want to push even more into it, which I've learned is not always the best route to go. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it just makes everything worse. But yeah,
I feel that.
Yeah. Are there any subgenres of horror that I should avoid as I'm getting into horror? Do you think there's anything? What should I stay away from?
Oh gosh, see, I like it all.
Yeah, I'm probably talking to the wrong people.
I would maybe stay away from I Saw the Devil, but from there, go for it.
I personally would tell you to stay away from found footage movies because I hate them.
Okay.
Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah, found footage is not.
That feels like a hot take. That feels like I could see that being controversial. Yeah,
that's not my jam. When I'm watching and the camera's doing this, and I'm like, I'm not drunk. Why is everything moving? Stop it.
Yeah. Have you tried? If you are drunk, does it balance out? Like if you
there you go.
Is it level? Is it like a steady cam?
No, it doesn't work because then I'm just drunk and really pissed. I'm like, now there's 3 TVs and everything's moving. So.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'd love to hear from both of you too, like a little bit about your journeys into filmmaking. What got you interested in acting? What got you interested in, directing and writing? And what was the kind of journey to get there?
So I started kind of my journey into filmmaking in college. On like a whim, I went to a film class with my scene partner in my acting class, and they were watching Singing in the Rain for her class that day. And I went, and I just like, it was like super cool. Like I was in when she was like, oh, we're going to watch a movie. I was like, oh, you have a whole class where you just watch a movie? Like, that's fantastic. Mm-hmm. But like, she had this really great professor that I ended up getting to have a couple times in my time in film school. And just like listening to him talk about movies and kind of break it down in a way like no one ever had to me before, there was like something there that really like stuck with me. And it was something I'd kind of been missing in like my theater major. I hadn't wanted to go in for writing because I had this like fear I was going to get like tired of creative writing. So I was like feeling really just kind of unfulfilled in like what I was doing. And I was like, well, this is cool and I like this, and I can, if I suck at it or if I hate it, I can just change majors. So I went in like my second semester and took like the introductory theory class and the production class, and like I fell in love with it right away. Like I was telling one of my younger siblings recently, like it made absolutely no sense for me to be like into film because I had no idea what I was doing. I had a teacher who really wanted to like center women on sets, and so I kind of was able to step in as a director for a class project, which was crazy because I had like literally no experience, but like doing that, something just clicked, and I was like, there's no reason this should feel like so correct, but it did, especially because it was something I'd like stumbled into. And then, I met Evan in college, and he and I started working on shorts together. We made a few shorts, would help each other with like, stuff that one of us was just like writing or directing. And then once we moved out to Colorado, we met our producer, Calvin Shepard, and he knew a lot of great talented people around here. And so kind of through that and through like a much longer story, we got into pre-production on Field of Screams. which is where we met Jordan.
Awesome.
Yeah, so for me, with acting, I growing up, I was a sports and a math guy. Didn't really care about the arts that much. Like liked movies but didn't think about ever doing it. And then senior year of high school, just took a video production class, needed an easy credit, and in the midst of that, just did stuff for one of the videos that my group was doing, and the teacher pulled me aside one day. He's like, have you ever thought about acting? I'm like, I mean, no, not really. And he's like, you could probably do it. You should consider it. Kind of stored it, but kind of didn't. And then few years went by and started to get more interested in the arts, just in general. And acting was one. I'm like, I think that would be cool. I feel like it fits some of the things I like. Growing up, I was good at school, but hated everything. And I kind of just thought that's what life was. Like you're good at stuff, but you hate what you're good at. But that's what you do. And then started to dabble in some artistic stuff. I'm like, oh, I'm happy. I can be happy and do stuff. I didn't know that was a combination. And with acting specifically, had genuine imposter syndrome because I hadn't really done it before. But joined a film club at University of Northern Colorado, which also I met Calvin Shepard, who Alex mentioned, one of the producers and one of the actors in the film. And he, in a lot of ways, has been a big hype man for me. But he cast me in a short film that ended up being a feature film that he was directing, and also around the same time got to act in something that I wrote and directed for the film club as well. And just as I was acting, like, I love this, and I got really positive encouragement. This was my first time doing it, and I had people who've been doing it for a while who were like, yeah, you should keep doing this. Like you've got something here. And yeah, very, very long story, but just over the years have kept getting opportunities that I don't know how I got. A lot of it genuinely has been Calvin. He for some reason liked me, and he connected me with a lot of different people who gave me opportunities I've been able to learn and grow. And yeah, and then Evan and Alex cast me in this role, and I got to really sink my teeth into it, and it was a blast. No matter how people feel about the performance, I loved it, and it was really good for me. And yeah.
Awesome. So for those who don't know what Field of Screams is about, go ahead and let our listeners know what the movie's about.
Yeah. So Field of Screams is a horror comedy about a young man named Alan who, after his grandfather dies, he inherits his grandfather's farm. He takes his boyfriend and his friends to the farm to kind of like clean it out and get it ready to sell. His, thinking being like, I don't know how to like run a farm. I don't know what to do with this space. So I might as well sell it to someone who does. What they don't know is that Alan's grandfather was a little bit into magic, and getting lonely as he got older made himself a friend named Billy, who's been calling the farmhouse home and is not super pleased that it's being sold. So this kind of causes some issues between Billy and then our main group that we stick with for a lot of the movie. Yeah, like I said, it's a horror comedy. The tagline we went with was "Love, Loss, Killer Scarecrows," which I feel like kind of
Yeah,
I love it so much.
Gets the cheek across and kind of gets it gets the intention, at least, is for it to get a little genuine at times. And then also be silly and ridiculous, and then also have killer scarecrows. And I think it checks off all of those nicely.
I love that.
I love all of those things. I will say I would love to see it. I saw the trailer and it looks so cool.
Thank you.
What was a little bit of the inspiration for this? And I'd love to hear from both of you too, just like some maybe like filming memories and what it was like putting this together.
Yeah. So the inspiration actually came from Evan. When he was younger, when his grandpa died, he and his family had to help his grandma kind of clean out the farm because she wasn't going to be able to run it by herself. So like the main kind of premise came from just like his childhood, just something he remembered doing when he was younger. He grew up in Iowa where there's like, you throw a dead cat and there's a farm. But that's where that kind of stood or came from. And then he really wanted to do something with a monster that he didn't feel was super played out, and he wanted to do something that we could film ourselves with like zero budget. Because when we first started on this was like 6 years ago, we still lived in Iowa, and our plan was to just like wrangle the people that we constantly ask favors for to like do for short films, and then find someone who owned a farm and like literally shoot it for no money. And then, COVID happened and that pushed a lot of our plans back. We have some very weird projects from COVID that that took the place of working on Field of Screams. But yeah, we wanted to do something that was that, it was important to him to do something that was centered around that grief and kind of the weird situation of like having something that's so important to your family member, but deciding to get rid of it. And like, kind of like, what does that, how does that make you feel? And how does that, affect you going into this? And then we took a lot of inspiration from like slashers, like Friday the 13th was something we came back to a lot. For specific parts of the movie, we've like, name dropped The Craft as a big piece of inspiration. It's kind of just like a hodgepodge of like a lot of different parts of horror that we love, and it got to kind of just become an amalgamation of different things we really love. It was super fun on set, and so to segue into set talk, when Evan and I wrote it, we wrote it specifically as a horror comedy because we knew through previous projects people found us funny, so we knew we could probably get people to laugh, and so we felt pretty safe in that. But we weren't sure like how well we could scare people or how well we could get like make people feel any other genuine emotion. So we were like, let's have fun with it. Let's couch it in comedy. Let's, that's our safe bet. And then we got onto set, and it was our second day of shooting, and Jordan came up to me. It was a night shoot. It was a day where we just had Jordan and his co-star, Jared Chandler. We were shooting a lot of the scenes where it's just the two of them. And it was nighttime. It was our first like night shoot. And we were getting ready for this scene that like Evan and I had specifically like envisioned as like, oh, this guy's like falling apart and it's a little pathetic and it's a little sad, and you like see yourself in him and you're like, oh, this guy's like losing it. Oh. And in our heads, it's almost like kind of a funny scene just because he's just so done with everything and he's so frustrated. And Jordan came up to me and said, hey, I have an idea for this. I said, okay. He's like, do you want me to tell you what that idea is? I'm like, I don't think so. I think I want you to do it, and then I'll decide if I like it. Cause like just do it and then let me see it, and we'll figure it out from there. He's like, okay. So he gets his headphones on. He gets like in his space. His partner Jen was on set with us as our first assistant director, and he basically said, tell Jen when you're ready for me and she will come get me. I will have my headphones on. I can't hear you. Nothing. And we're like, okay, sick. And we're like, wow, he's really in it. So I was like super excited. And we go to roll our first take, and he blows the ears out on our audio tech because he screams so loud. He like, and it's like nighttime. We're in a small town. Like there are not a lot of noises, and he just screamed, and everyone set just gets like really still, and he goes through kind of the like monologue in the scene, and we cut, and like first I go to our sound guy, I'm like, hey, you okay? I saw you. You okay? He's like, yeah. And I go to Jordan. Jordan was like, yeah, what do you think? I'm like, I think you should continue to do that. I think we are going to get more takes of that. We're going to get some more shots. And in every shot and every take, you're going to do that. And he was like, cool. Yeah. And it was a weird moment where Evan and I had just like looked at each other and were like, oh, this is going to be a slightly different movie than we thought it was. Because Jordan is taking this character incredibly seriously, and then everybody proceeded to take their characters incredibly seriously in ways that we couldn't have anticipated, and it was really lovely because it then added some heart that I think Evan and I were scared to put in it, because we were like, I don't know if this is gonna play, I don't know if we can believably put this in here, and so a lot of, there were quite a few like moments we planned to be kind of funny that ended up just kind of playing a little more straight or a little more genuine. But yeah, that was like burned into my head because that moment just kind of changed the trajectory of the entire movie, and it was incredibly cool. It was a really cool experience to have.
Oh, that's so
I love
awesome.
that. I can't wait to see this movie.
And Jordan, what about you? Like, what was a favorite kind of like on-set memory for you?
Yeah. I know for me, it was kind of bouncing off what Alex said. It was a really fun on-set experience because it was simultaneously like really, like at least for my character and my experience, it was really intense and really fun because they do a good job with the script of bouncing around between really fun ensemble scenes and then like really grounded, emotionally weighty, like character-driven scenes about grief because my character is great. His granddad died and stuff, and so he's grieving. And so it was just really, fun to do both. And you asked for a favorite on-set memory. I think that there's so many, and they all blur together because we're all stuffed in one space for a long time. I think for me, some of just the most joyous parts were the ensemble things when it was just like 6 of the friends who were at the house, 6 of us just in a room or in like the backyard, just kind of shitting around and drinking and doing all that stuff, and just all like when camera's rolling, when camera's not rolling, we would just be playing around, having fun, and all of the different personalities. And this guy, I'm pretty sure this comes across in the movie, but it's a very eclectic group of people, just like the actual human beings, and then they all bring their own personalities into the characters, and there's something fascinating to me in art when you just put a bunch of humans in a room together that are different and they just start bouncing off of each other, and it's just cool to see the different ways they bounce off of each other. And so just getting to play around with the people, I love the intense stuff that Alex talked about, and I love just figuring out how to improv with people in a room and try to be silly and funny. And the fact that we had an opportunity to do both on this film was just delightful. I feel like, we got to, as actors, we got to flex a lot of our different muscles and grow in a lot of different ways. And
That's
amazing.
awesome.
Amazing.
So now, before we get into A Violent Nature, do you guys have anywhere we can see the movie, or when will it be released? Do you have DVDs, Blu-rays for sale, anything like that? I am asking for everybody else, but I'm also asking for me. So.
Same.
So when we're recording this, not to date it, but when we're recording this, we're currently gearing up for our physical and streaming release.
Awesome.
Field of Screams is going to be available to rent or buy on Apple TV Plus and Prime Video, as well as I think like Fandango at home as well.
Awesome.
And it will be available through some cable networks. If you follow our socials, once like the day comes, we'll post like a pretty comprehensive thing that's like, hey, here's where you can find us. But the big ones are Apple TV Plus and Prime Video. If you have the Apple TV Plus app, you can pre-order the movie, but I think this will probably be out after pre-orders have ended. But May 6th is when it hits streaming, and then May 6th is when you can order Blu-rays and DVDs. The major place that we know for sure you can get them is Amazon, but they should be available through places like Barnes & Noble, FYE, and then a couple smaller retailers have picked them up from there. But yeah, May 6th, you can find us on Apple TV Plus, Prime, and then you can order a Blu-ray or DVD on Amazon.
There was a reading of the will earlier today. He left you the farm.
Thank God that old guy died, man. I was ready to kill that redneck myself.
I didn't know your grandpa was into this kind of stuff.
The last time I did see him, he was so happy, and he kept talking about death not being the end.
They were made from a ritual, a magic ritual.
We get out of here. We get out of here. We get out of here.
It's me you want.
Alan.
Hi, everybody. Just wanted to thank all of you guys for listening and supporting the podcast. If you haven't already, please follow us, like us, leave us a review. Little things like this can really help the podcast out so much. Also, if you want to hear your name mentioned in our episodes at the beginning and receive fun little goodies from the entire Bloody Essentials team, you can join our Patreon. It's 100% like no commitment. All the proceeds go back into the podcast. It helps us upgrade our recording equipment, our editing software, all those good things. And it also helps pay for our travel expenses with our upcoming appearances. So that can add up really fast, but we're looking to hopefully expand to other conventions and, going to other states to see spooky attractions. So funds like that will help significantly. Also, I don't know if you guys know, but before we can actually start receiving funds through YouTube and things like that, as horror creators, we need at least 500 followers on YouTube. So if you aren't already following us, but you listen to us and you really like our content, please like us, subscribe. It really helps out so much, and it allows us to keep doing what we're doing. So we love bringing horror to you each week, whether it's content creators, our thoughts on a film. So we really want to keep doing this for as long as possible. And money is unfortunately a big way to stay on top of that. So like I said, all of your support really means a lot, and you get fun little goodies from all of us. We got Bloody Essentials merch. We got horror goodies that we've been saving for you guys, whether it's stickers, horror collectibles, I'm talking shirts from your favorite horror companies, Fright Rags, all those good places. And then, of course, we've got some NECA figures and all those kinds of things. So if you want to receive fun horror goodies from your Bloody Essentials crew, join our Patreon. It's going to be a really good time. We also have a Discord channel and unedited episodes before they air. So that's always exciting. And we're hoping to be doing movie parties really soon. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, just thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll get back to the show now.
Okay, so let's get into a violent nature. I'm so excited to break this one down with you guys. I feel like people have strong opinions on this movie either way. I'm just going to kind of go through the plot points, and we'll talk along the way. If there's something you want to bring up, just go ahead and do it. Okay.
Feel free to interrupt.
Yeah. So we open, we kind of hear some walking in the woods. We hear some people talking, and we see this locket, and we get a little hint to there was a slaughter there, and one of our characters takes the locket. First of all, would you guys take the locket? I mean, it's just hanging there.
No.
No,
No.
I mean, if it had like a diamond on it, yeah, but it didn't look valuable enough to risk taking from a creepy woods place. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of with you on that one.
I can't lie. I'd have taken that some bitch.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I'd have taken it. I'd have been like, "What is this? Let's go see it." I'd have taken it.
Oh my gosh.
No, I would have looked at it and been like, that's cursed for sure. Keep walking.
Yeah.
I don't
I
need
feel like
that.
they've never seen a horror movie. Okay, so we have this really interesting scene where our killer emerges from the ground. It's a slow moment. It stays on this shot. We hear some bubbling, and we see this pipe moving around. This hand emerges. We get this kind of Jason-esque character who stands up. I thought that scene was pretty cool. Pretty interesting.
I thought so too.
Yeah. So, our killer begins this walk to find this locket. This is the first of several scenes where we are kind of following behind him in these nature scenes, which, is a reoccurring thing. What did you guys think of how that looked and how they kind of like use that throughout the film?
It's like incredibly unusual. And I do really like it. I like the common descriptor of it being like a nature documentary about a serial killer or a slasher villain. I also like just from a kind of like film theory perspective, I really like it because it tells you like so quickly, like, this is the character you're supposed to care about. This is the character like we want you to latch onto. And I think that's really cool, and that's really interesting because with so many horror movies, the thing is like, oh, don't show the monster, don't show the killer. It's scarier if you don't show them. And they kind of just break that right away. And I think that's really interesting.
Definitely.
Yeah, I thought it was fascinating because it felt like, again, I haven't seen a lot of slasher movies, but it felt like, a slasher movie, but we're just going to follow the slasher the whole time. And thinking about, like, it made me think back to, like, Halloween and other movies where you don't see the slasher a lot of the time. And it's like, oh, yeah, they're probably walking around a bunch. So it felt kind of like this, oh, yeah, this is what's going on in those other movies. You just don't see it. It's just a lot of walking. A lot of just...
A lot.
A lot. Like, they're in great shape, and I think it made me appreciate slashers. It's just how you have to put in the work. Yeah, no, and I thought it was fascinating. I think for the most part, I liked it. There was a couple times, and it was a personal thing where I'm like, oh, I wish it had. I liked that it was long. I wish it had cut away like a little bit earlier. There was a couple times where I started to think about how long the scene was taking. There's a lot of times where it's just like, oh, this is really interesting, and then I was like, oh, now I'm thinking about it. And so that was just like, if I was directing it, I would have changed a little bit with it, but I thought it was a fascinating concept. Yeah.
Ethan?
I'm not a writer or director. And it was good for the first 5 minutes. For 5 minutes, I was like, okay, so this is happening. This is still happening. This is still freaking happening. Yep. But I'm a plumber, not a director, so it is what it is. So
It kept happening a lot.
Oh, yes.
A lot. Like the whole movie. I think it took me a long time to realize, oh, they're gonna keep doing this. Like, I think I'm like, oh, it'll start like this. I think it took me way too long to be like, oh, this is what they're doing with the movie. But yeah, I was
telling Evan, I like this movie a lot as an experiment. I think it's a really interesting experiment. I don't like watching it as a movie. I understand. I had a better time watching it this time around because I had like a goal and I was like taking notes and I was like, I'm gonna have to say things about this. But yeah, just kind of cut and dry going like, oh, I'm gonna watch a horror movie. You kind of sit there like,
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And right before I watched the movie, I talked to Randy, who actually he plays the Scarecrow in Field of Screams. But I was telling him I was going to watch this for the podcast, and he was like, "Yeah," he's like, "It's weirdly like just a very peaceful movie for me." And I didn't know what the movie was about. I knew it was a super gory like horror movie. I'm like, oh, like, am I gonna think you're like a psychotic person after I watch this? And after I watched it, I'm like, oh, I get that. Like,
Yeah.
someone mentioning the nature documentary thing of just, yeah, he's like, yeah, it's weirdly just very, very peaceful. And it's I could see throwing it on in the background and just like you meditate to this movie.
I was going to say do some yoga.
Yes,
Maybe.
exactly. Do some yoga, take a bath.
Oh no.
Anyway, so our killer continues walking. We see this dead animal in a trap too, which is going to come up in a minute. And he comes up upon this house, and we have this argument that's kind of occurring between a guy and the park ranger, talking about the traps and the college kids that are going to be in the area. I will say there's a moment I really like in that where, the killer goes into the house, and we see the guy leaving, going outside from the other direction. I thought that was really cool. Really liked that.
Yeah.
Okay. So Johnny goes inside, checks out the house. He sees this necklace that he thinks is his locket. We get like a little bit of a flashback, a memory of his father. The man comes back inside thinking it's the ranger. He's ready to go, shoots, sees Johnny, and is like, oh my God, what do you want from me? No.
Can we talk about that flashback for a second?
Yeah.
Because it's the weirdest part of the movie for me, because it's entirely different than the rest of the movie.
It is.
Like, the whole movie is so grounded and like takes so much care to be like very grounded and realistic. And then there's this weird little green screen flashback in a mirror. Like, it was just so like weird to me the first time, and I'd forgotten about it. Like, what do you think about that?
You're right. It does kind of it doesn't really fit in with the rest of the vibe. And it's really interesting too, because it's a faceless memory. It's like the guy's torso in that mirror, and you don't really see his face. Yeah, it is kind of jarring because it doesn't really fit in.
Yeah. Did not fit in with the movie.
Yeah. I don't know if it was because I had a similar experience with the scene, and after watching, I'm like, I don't know if that it was even necessary. Like, I don't think I think you would have gotten outside of that, oh yeah, this locket's important and it came from family stuff. Like, I don't think it was necessary. And I wonder if it was because it was like a special effects scene. If they just put so much effort into it, they're like, no, we're keeping
going
this
with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could have left a lot out of the movie, and
would have been a good 15-minute. Yeah.
Oh my God, Jamie, we were just talking about that.
That would be fun. If someone hasn't done that, someone should take this movie and cut it down to its bare essential and just see what it would be like and how long it would be. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. It sounds like a lot of work, but someone else would do it. Yeah.
Anyway, so they're doing their thing. The man runs out into the woods. Johnny's pursuing him slowly, steadily, totally calm about the whole thing. I will say, love the guy's hat too. He's got a number one motherfucker trucker hat on, which was pretty great. And then it's a beautiful moment where he gets stuck in his own trap, and it's like, well, should listen to the ranger dude on that. And then we get this. It's kind of an off-scene kill, but Johnny's hand reaches out, and next scene we get is the hand is bloody, and he's kind of putting the necklace back, or he's back in the house. And then when he walks past him, we get a glimpse of the guy's leftovers, a little bit. There's an arm, get a little glimpse of the carnage there. Okay. Next we're introduced to our characters, our fodder, basically, our college kids. They're around the campfire, hanging out, talking about proposals, dick sizes, all the good stuff. And then we get into the story of Johnny, which is this logging company. His dad ran these stores that charged a lot, so the loggers weren't really cool with them, blamed them for some things. They decide to pull a prank on Johnny, who, has a mental disability. They say there's toys in this fire tower. It ends up being them. They scare him. He falls to his death. The guys end up killing the dad. A couple weeks later, the whole camp is slaughtered. What do you guys think of this kind of like backstory and our introduction to these characters?
I really like it. And when I say really like, I want to be like, I like it from the point of view that I was watching it and like trying to understand why this movie is doing what it's doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Because like it does bore me. This movie does kind of bore me, but I know. No, it's shocking. I didn't want you to not feel seen, Ethan. This movie, I'm not trying to argue this is like a secretly genius film, but I was like, okay, I know my first like impression of this is like, I'm really bored by this, but like, what am I missing? What could have been like the reason for doing these things, even though like I wouldn't do it. And I really like that we get the little like circular shot around the fire, because it's very like
that was cool.
Old school, and then it's like a good way of like, it comes back to kind of that nature documentary thing where it's like it's circling them like a predator would circle prey. There's an interview with the director where he mentions that in that shot, Johnny is in the background. Like of that shot, he's clearly in the background when they take the picture later, but like in that shot, if you like look hard enough, you can like see him in the foliage.
Wow.
Because they were like, yeah, they wanted to try to have him in as many shots as possible. I think the goal is to have him like always on camera.
I'm not gonna go back and watch it to find out.
What? Not even with that like crazy piece of information.
If I do, I'm gonna watch just that part.
No. Any other thoughts on our characters or the story?
It was very like it was very Friday the 13th for sure. Like it was super Friday the 13th, which felt like that's bad. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
No, I agree. When they were sitting around the fire and going around there, I was like, oh, this is Friday the 13th part 2.
So, yeah. Well, and I feel like Johnny's very Jason coded.
Very.
Like he comes off as very Jason coded to me. Like he's clearly a stand-in for like all slashers, but like he feels closest to Jason.
Then why did they make him look like a minion? I'm sorry.
That's the director actually talked about that.
Really?
And like how hard it was to find a mask design that didn't make him just look like a minion. So they were actively trying to negate how much he looks like a minion.
Yeah.
Wow.
They should connect those worlds.
Yeah. Despicable Me
the crossover we didn't know we needed.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
okay.
No.
So they snap the selfie, and that's going to come up later. We have Johnny in the background, which I thought was pretty fun. Then we go to like their cabins, they're college kids, they're doing their things. And our kind of stoner guy is going to go out into the woods. I like how they're teasing him too. That's kind of fun. And then we have a really fun kill, in my opinion. Johnny basically comes up behind him. He's standing against a tree and he has some kind of blade and just like pulls it across, and you get a top of the head slide off decap. And I am a sucker for those. You don't get those every day.
No, those are very rare.
It was, and this will come up multiple times throughout this. I don't understand how special effects, I don't understand how any of it works. It's all magic to me. So like all of the kills in this movie, I'm like, how did you do that? So
Jordan,
if anyone knows how anything happened, they actually killed these people.
They killed those actors.
I do respect. That's what those Canadians are. Yeah.
Hardcore.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I was watching it and I was like, God, I wish somebody'd kill me.
You're like, oh,
actually, funny story. Halfway through it, I thought my wife was gonna kill me. She was like, "What the hell have you brought me to watch?"
Oh my gosh. So we get a little glimpse of Johnny too, like a little bit of who he is, because there's a moment where he like touches the guy's shirt because it has a ranger on it. So we get a little glimpse into his backstory there. But I love how he just drags this body and he has the head and he goes to the ranger station. He throws the head into the window
Yes.
or whatever
I
to
loved
break
that, yeah.
in. I did too. No respect for the body
yeah.
here. And he we see like the fire gear and everything, which is the minion mask that he's ultimately going to take there. Then we go back to a couple of our college kids. It's our two ladies. They're flirting, having fun. One of them goes in for a dip and the other one heads off, to go do her thing. And we see Johnny just like walk into the water. And our one girl makes a sound and, gets pulled under and she's dead. She floats back up. So
unceremonious. No respect.
I know. No respect for these bodies at all.
This man does not respect the people he murders, and honestly, it's disgusting.
Then Johnny keeps walking, and we have our other girl. She's doing yoga, and she sees him, and she screams and backs up, and then we get like probably the most infamous kill of the movie. Which pretty amazing. I don't know anything about human anatomy apparently, but he pushes his hand in this tool through her and puts a hook in her head and like pulls her head through her own torso cavity, which was pretty cool.
Yes.
I was making noises throughout that whole part. Just like, what? Because it just kept every part of like, oh, that's crazy. And then it just kept going. And that's when I realized like this guy's like I don't know the right word, but he's an innovator. Like he like the things he was doing, like where do you come up with this stuff, homie? Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's not just shooting people. He's definitely
he's
taking his time.
Yeah, he's an artist. Yeah.
Definitely.
Now, I will say, we don't get a whole lot of character development, in my opinion, with our like college kids. And so for me, like I would have really loved to see like I feel like a little bit more chase with this scene. I feel like it would have made it even better. I was kind of wanting like a good chase scene in there just to add something a little bit more dynamic since we don't really have a lot of character development with the college kids. But that's just me. I love me a chase scene. So I feel like I would have loved just a little moment of pursuit there, but it's already a pretty amazing kill as it is.
Yeah. No, I definitely get what you mean. I was missing tension.
Yes.
In a lot of the kills, I think the kills themselves are very cool, and for a lot of them, I just felt myself like missing tension.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
that's definitely it. Okay, so Johnny strolls, and he gets his axe and everything. Okay. Then we go back to some of our guys, and they are now discussing their missing friends because they got a couple people who are missing now. They're kind of going back and forth through the car keys. We have Johnny over there. He picks up the car keys because it's got a little toy on it. And then we get the face reveal. I want to know your guys' opinions on it. What did you think of the face reveal moment? It's a little unceremonious for me.
I don't know. I don't think I felt anything strong. So I don't think I thought it was terrible. And I don't think I thought it was great. I think I didn't really think much about it.
That's exactly what I wasn't like, oh my God, this is phenomenal. Or, oh, that was shitty. I was just like, yeah, okay, there's his face. Great.
Yeah. I really hate that we see his face at all. Like, I am not a huge fan of it. Like, I had a pretty strong reaction to it.
Yeah.
But I love kind of just like, I don't know. I love hiding a face and either having it as a reveal or just you never get to see it.
Yeah.
But I went into this trying to figure out, well, like, why did he do that? Like, why did they decide to do that? And it feels like, again, another moment where they're trying to get you to care about him. Because like we don't get any, we don't get any time to care about like his victims.
Right.
Really.
And
until...
I didn't.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, absolutely not. But this little like moment with the car and him kind of like playing with it and the fact that we see his face so clearly when like we almost never see anyone's face clearly unless they're about to die. Like it felt like it was like, oh yeah, this is your guy. This is who you're supposed to care about. You're supposed to root for him. Like whether that's effective or not is like a totally other thing. But that's kind of what it felt like to me. It was just like you're supposed to care about this guy. And I was like, well, I kind of already cared about him before I saw his face. I was kind of into his whole shtick. But no, I like it for that like use of communication, but I don't generally like the decision.
Yeah, that's well put. Yeah,
I like that observation.
Yeah. So two of our kids, two of our college kids take off on ATV. They're going to go to the ranger station, try and get some help, figure things out. Johnny then, and I feel like I almost got a sense that he was a little triggered by the conversation because the guy's talking about his dad, and obviously Johnny, Johnny's got some daddy issues. So I think he was a little triggered by that. He basically puts something on the car horn to lure the other guys out, and Troy, I think is his name, gets an axe to his leg. His friend comes out, shoots Johnny. Johnny's laying there on the ground, and they prepare to flee. And I'm sitting there like, you guys got to pick up the pace. You know that this guy is going to get back up. Never seen a horror movie, these guys. So, they're fleeing, and Johnny gets back up and throws an axe, kills the friend who's mobile.
Great.
Yeah.
Incredible.
It was insane.
It was insane. And then I do like this moment because Troy is like crawling, away. He's obviously terrified. Johnny picks up this huge boulder, and we know what's going to happen. Yes. There's no escaping in that moment, and he just throws the boulder down on his head, and it goes kaboom.
Yeah. I think I thought they were gonna like cut to show a different shot of the head being smashed, and the fact that they did it in the same shot, again, magic. I don't understand how any of this works, but like I thought it was interesting that they showed it just in that same shot, and
definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. So Chris and Colt return. They were the ones on the ATV, I believe. She's down on the ground, and then she narrowly misses getting hit by an axe, which was pretty cool. They see Johnny, they narrowly escape on the ATV. Johnny strolls again with his axe and some purpose. We go back to the ranger station, and we meet the ranger who's telling them all about Johnny and kind of the reality of him in the story. Here comes Johnny, and we learn that this ranger was responsible for putting him in the ground. He shoots at him and says they need to take him to the fire tower where all of this stuff happened. Johnny fights back. Our kids take off, and then we have this like crazy moment where Johnny like grabs the guy's spine and like paralyzes him.
Yep. Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
That is what happened.
He sure did. And the guy is lying there, obviously can't do anything. And Johnny goes to this little shed and comes back and chains him, pulls him, and then we come to the wood chopper, I should say. I do really like the moment where Johnny like puts a log through to almost show the guy, like, just so know, this is what's next for you.
Right.
And loads him on, and we get the chopping of the leg and the chopping of the head. What did you guys think of this kill?
I liked it. It's for me one of the kills that is like just cool. Like I again kind of felt like a loss of like tension a little bit, but I think it's a cool kill all the same. I kept kind of having this thought as I was watching it for the second time where I was like, well, if I'm not getting any tension out of this and I'm not getting any like suspense, like what is the point of these kills, and like what's the point of how they're shot? And I was coming to this idea that I don't know if it was the intention, but to me, like the kills kind of keep getting more and more ridiculous and taking up more time, and there's more violence with every single one. Yeah. And so whether this was the intention or not, I think it works as an interesting thing of like taking out all the bells and whistles of horror movies and just showing you violence and kind of asking you, the viewer, like, is this enough for you? Is this enough? Do you feel something yet? Is this enough? No, yeah, but yeah, exactly. Like, and then, you know, if it's not, what is, you know, that leaves it up to you to kind of reflect and think about that. And it can be as simple as like, well, you should have made a horror movie that made me feel scared. Or like, but I just thought it was really interesting to like watch very violent things happen and like feel like no reaction for me personally for a lot of it. And just that in and of itself is such an interesting experience. That being said, I really like experimental film a lot, and this is a very experimental way of looking at the movie, but I think it's a really good experiment. So maybe not effective as it maybe could be, but I think it's a good experiment.
I think there's something I didn't think about till she was talking about. Maybe it's partially they're trying to show you the violence from the slasher's perspective of this is just monotonous. Like it's not this big tense thing for the slasher. It's just this thing that it takes up time. It's happening in normal time. There's no cuts. It's just this slow thing that's happening. And there's a monotony to it that I could see potentially being intentional on the creator's part of trying to show the monotony of this violence to the murderer himself.
Gotcha.
But that's just a thought that came into my head. So it also they maybe just didn't want to cut.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good kill. I just thought it could have been shortened by, I don't know, like 7 minutes.
So yeah,
those are
so cut
precious
half of
7
it.
minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a good kill, and it was gore, and I like gore. I like blood, guts, all that stuff. That's my jam. I like that. But I was like, cut it down, homie. Cut it down.
All right. So we have that happen. Johnny strolls again some more. And we have Chris and Colt, our kind of remaining college kids, are trying to figure out how they're going to kill this guy. You know, they got some gasoline, it looks like. They're ready to go. They're, you know, making some noise, talking to each other as he's there. And I'm like, guys, come on, keep it down just a little bit. And Colt, you know, is like going to get his attention, says, hey, Johnny. And Johnny just axes him in the face and then proceeds to just axe him into a pulp.
This was one of the things in the movies that I actually didn't get. What was the goal of the guy? Because this is the scene, the guy and the girl, correct?
Yeah.
And then what was, because I thought the guy was going to like do something somewhere else, and all of a sudden he popped up behind the guy and like didn't move. I was like, are you sacrificing yourself? And I don't think that's what he was doing. Like I don't know if I didn't understand something or if there was just like a glitch in the writing or something.
So my take on that was, there's a thing in horror movies where people will be like, hey, over here, come and get me. And then they get away at least for a little bit. But like, I think they were specifically trying to comment on that or ground it and be like, no, this is what happens if you approach a killer and say, hey, I'm over here. Because I think he was trying to distract him. That was kind of my take.
Same.
Yeah. I just love the distraction was like he was right behind him and like and axe length away. I was like, oh, just next time you have this opportunity, like go a little bit further away. Like you could distract better.
I don't know if you've ever encountered college age men, Jordan, but sometimes they tend to be very cocky and overconfident.
I used to be a college-aged male.
What?
And
what?
Excuse me?
Understand. Yes, that actually helps me understand his character better. So yes.
And I'm way beyond college age, but I'm still a cocky son of a bitch. So.
Hey! Good. Never let it die.
Let it die. So you know, our basically final girl is left here. You know, she's quietly watching the smashing of this guy's face. She leaves the locket on the gasoline tank or whatever, and takes off. And we kind of switch perspectives here now. Now we're following behind her, running through the forest. She falls over at one point, has to pull a branch out of her leg, which was always gnarly. So the change perspective was kind of interesting. She ends up in a road, and we have a Friday the 13th alum pull up in a truck.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lauren Marie
I did not know
Taylor.
this. This is
Love her.
why I
Oh.
need y'all. Yes.
Yes. She rolls up. She, gets her in her truck and, proceeds to tell this story about her brother, who was attacked by a bear in these woods. Any thoughts on this particular scene? I'm curious what you guys think. The switch on who we're kind of following.
On a like technical level, I really like it. Like, it's shot really well, and it's a nice like moment, but it feels like a totally different movie.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because it's the end of the movie, and it feels like an entirely different movie. And I don't know if I'm like totally sold on it, but I really this was like the one part of the movie where I felt a little tense because the whole time I was like waiting for the other shoe to drop and for Johnny to show back up.
Yep. Which I did. I liked the way they played the. Yeah, I think that was one of the first times you feel tension in the movie, which makes sense. It's the one time you don't really see Johnny, so I didn't think about that. But yeah, how it was interesting because Jen watched this movie with me, and the whole car ride and like all that stuff, I was pretty tense. I'm like, oh, I didn't fully trust her. I'm like, he's gonna be hiding in the car or something, because they were filming it in a way where you couldn't see like the back seat. So I was like, oh, something's about to happen. She's like, no, I was kind of bored during that scene. And so it was interesting. We both had very opposite experiences. She's like, it was just a really long conversation. I was like, I was freaking, I was scared. I couldn't even hear what they were saying. So I'm like, he's gonna jump out and scare me, and I'm gonna have to act like I wasn't scared. Yeah, so I thought it was an interesting decision, and I think it was partially effective for me to do the character switch thing.
I am really curious, Ethan, because like you have not been a huge fan of this movie. Like, was this different enough that you were like, this is what I wanted?
Yes, and I don't know if it was the nostalgia of Lauren, and I know Lauren, she's freaking fabulous. She's a great woman. Love her. She's awesome. So when I found out she was in this movie, I was really excited. And the fact she didn't come to the end, I was like, that fucking sucks. But after watching it, I did like how it switched to, okay, now she's in there, and I was expecting him to either pop out of the back seat or, whatever, jump in front of the car, something. And I was like, okay, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Bitch is still talking. Bitch is still talking. Bitch is still talking. All right, she's getting out of the car. She gonna go and wrap her leg. She gonna fix her. Okay, that's good. Somebody. Bitch is still talking and wrapping her leg. It's the end of the movie. I am gonna tell Lauren the next time I see her, you give me $20 for that movie.
Oh,
you're tickets. No. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I did like how it switched from, the killer's perspective to just like a regular movie. And I did feel a little bit of anticipation that something was going to happen, but incredibly let down when nothing happened. And I was like, she's just talking. Yeah. And my wife was like, why? Why was she even in this movie? She's like, I know you know her, you like her, you've seen her at all these cons, and she's big horror alumni. But why? What was the point? I'm like, I don't know, so they could throw her name on the video and say, here, buy this. So
yeah, I didn't know. I don't know if the perspective jump to me, I was like, I don't know if it worked for me. I just because I before we get into our final ratings, I'll say I loved this conceptually. I didn't know if that kind of I don't know, it kind of took me out of the concept a little bit. But I do like the last kind of line she has, which is, animals don't get real hung up on reason, which I think is supposed to kind of, kind of explain some things to this gal. But yeah, I don't know how I felt about the perspective change. But yeah.
The director has said that was a really late addition, that ending scene. and it was and to be catty, like it feels like a late edition. So like just to say, like, I think that's why it feels so strange, because it did come in like a lot later than a lot of other stuff. But
That makes sense.
yeah,
Actually,
it made a lot of sense to me, because I was like, what is the point of this? And then I'd like heard a podcast interview with him, and he was like, oh, my producers wanted it to be actually feature length, so we needed another scene. So I wrote a scene, and we didn't hate it, so we kept the scene. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense as to why that's there. Yeah, sure.
That tracks. Yeah, that tracks.
I appreciate you not making a bullshit reason for this scene to exist. Like,
right?
Yeah, give it to me straight.
But yeah, I mean, we basically in the movie, you know, we don't see Johnny, but we do go back and we do see that the locket is gone. So we assume that Johnny took the locket, and that is in a violent nature.
Yeah.
Sure was. Now I got, before we rate the movie, I got some fun facts. Let me put on my glasses because I am old. So.
Fun facts.
All right, Alex, you actually gave some of these so I can skip over them. But
I'm so sorry. I'm so
No,
sorry.
that's fine. That's
Nerd.
fine. It's okay, so I don't have to talk about this movie anymore. No. There was 15 gallons of fake blood used during this, and it was a mixture of corn syrup and red velvet cake mix.
Ooh.
Which I thought was kind of cool.
Tasty.
It's a new one.
Yeah.
Yes. Andrea Pavlik, who was the star, the final girl, said that before this, she was not a horror or a slasher fan, but she now has a greater appreciation for the genre and definitely for the horror community itself. So I said, okay, I can get with that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Let's see. The movie has absolutely no score.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh,
So the director, Chris Nash, said that he wanted to be a blank canvas and wanted it to be objective and didn't want anything to interfere with the film. Homie, let something interfere with the film. Again, I'm not a director. I'm not a producer. I'm not even an actor yet. But
can I bounce off that though?
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah, I it makes it less approachable and maybe less effective as a movie. But to me it like as an experiment, which I keep saying this, and it's showing like my film theory classes. Because unless you care about looking at movies like experiments and not something to enjoy watching, like it doesn't matter. But like I think that kind of speaks to that feeling of like asking the audience to kind of just like, yeah, we're showing you everything. We're showing you all the, you know, horror movie stuff. And we're asking you how you feel about it. And however you feel about it, that's fine. And that's for you to kind of sit with and ask yourself about when the movie's over. And if you feel fucking bored, sick, amazing. If you felt really tense, cool. If you like loved this main character, great. It just that caught me because I didn't know that specifically, but like it feels like it speaks to him maybe wanting to not direct how people are going to experience it, which is a bold move when the entire point of making a movie is communicating a feeling usually.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the original title of this was called Sleeping Animal.
Okay.
Which,
I like this title better.
I was going to say,
yeah.
that title is cool. It kind of fits in with what Lauren said about the animal. So
yeah,
probably should have went with that. But again, I'm not in charge. Okay. And Chris, the director, describes the film as a test of patience. Well, no shit, sir.
you failed the test, Ethan.
Right?
You failed.
he said that horror movies often reward patience to the audience. I ain't got a damn reward in this movie, so go ahead. So, I almost got divorced over this movie, but whatever. A whole different story for a different time.
Oh, God.
All right, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to rate the movie. How we rate here is 1 through 10, 1 being absolutely horrible, 10 being the greatest movie that you've ever seen, and everybody on the face of the earth needs to see it. So, why don't we start with our guests? Alex?
I'm gonna rate it as a 6.
Okay.
On the condition that like I don't feel entirely neutral about it, so I don't want to give it a 5.
Okay.
And like I think if you have a specific interest in like the horror genre and weird things that people do with the horror genre that are very unconventional, I think you should watch this. I don't think everybody needs to watch this. I'm fully understanding that it is my fault that everyone here watched it. As I suggested it.
Was wondering who I should be pissed at.
You should
Sorry.
be pissed at me. Fly out to Colorado, kick my ass, go for it. No, I think it's interesting if you're a fan of the genre and like willing to kind of like sit in for something new.
Yeah.
Jordan?
Yeah. I'll go. I hate rating stuff, but I'll go. I enjoyed it at like a probably. I'll say 6.5, like a 6.5 out of 10. I think I enjoyed. I love. I'm this way with albums too. I like when artists try things, even if it doesn't land for me 100%. I appreciate when artists are trying different things, and this one I liked the ideas and the concepts. I thought it was really, really interesting. I thought they were really creative and unique. And the implementation was kind of hit and miss, but I'm glad they made this movie. I have this thing where I want more independent artists to make bad things. Like I think we need more finances and resources to the lay people so that we can, because the more bad things that are made, the more great things that are made. And so, yeah. So 6.5.
Like shit. No.
Yeah, that's right, Ethan. Yeah, that's right. No, but with that being said, I 100% understand. Like I know most people I know would probably not like this movie, and that's not because I don't think people need to like this movie.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just, I like this kind of because of this different angle that I have in the filmmaking realm and stuff.
Okay.
Like I would want to encourage other artists to make this. I wouldn't necessarily encourage other people to watch this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jamie?
So, I am a fan of conceptual, experimental kind of films that are more a experience than a movie per se, like you guys were kind of speaking to. I love the concept of this. I also like kind of ambient horror movies. So, there were elements of that I really appreciated. I thought like it was cool that the pacing was a little unusual because you get like all these slow walking moments, but then you'll have like a pretty crazy bonkers kill. I liked that. That being said, like there were some things that I wish would have been executed a little different. There were some edits that they did that I didn't really understand, or I'm like, I feel like the confidence kind of wavered in some of the edits. But as a concept, really, really appreciate it. Think it's super cool. All that being said, I'm gonna give it like a 5.5, almost a 6. I enjoyed watching this again because of the experience. For me, I get why they did it. We're supposed to be like in the killer's perspective. So our college kids, like we're not really supposed to get to know them. We're not really supposed to root for them necessarily. But I like to have at least like one of those kind of victim characters who I'm like kind of rooting for and kind of following. I just think like it adds something to the movie. So I wish we had that a little bit. We get it with our final girl a bit at the end. But I know that was like part of the point. So yeah, like a 5.5. I think it's very cool. I'm glad they made it. I think the concept is really cool, and I like the risk that they took. I mean, not having a score, that's kind of badass. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, it's punk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Punk rock.
Yeah, so I appreciate it. I'm glad they made it.
All right. Well,
10 out of 10. Ethan? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh God, yeah. All right. Well, obviously my favorite subgenre, if you've ever listened to the show, is slashers. So I thought this was going to be a good slasher movie. I knew it was going to be from his point of view, and I was okay with that. I was like, all right, rock on, let's go. I knew it was going to be something different, and it was just terrible. There's nothing more I can say about it. It was bad. I'm sorry. Now, listen, the kills were good. I did like the kills. I liked the gore, but the movie was
get
bad.
some points, okay?
Yes, you get some points for the kills. I couldn't deal that he looked like a freaking minion. That just it took me way out from. I was like, no, I'm done with this. I understand what he was trying, although I'm not a, I don't write movies. I'm not a producer. I'm not a director. I understand what he was trying to do. I understand why he didn't have any music in there. I think the movie would have been a lot better had he had some music in there. Have you ever watched Halloween without John Carpenter's score? It's a whole hell of a lot less scary.
Yeah.
I'm like, so maybe if you would have put that in there, the music could have given us that whole, okay, something's about to happen, where we could have felt like it. I understand what he was trying to do. I just think it was the wrong choice, but I wasn't the director. So, I mean, it is what it is. For me, I would give this a 3. Yeah.
Hey, it's not a 1. Yeah,
it's not a 1.
Higher than I was expecting. So
I gave it a 3 because of the kills. Had the kills been crappy, I'd have been like 1. So yeah. So I gave it a 3. Now, when I do it, 1 through 3 is I've seen it. You don't have to. 4 through 6 is you should see it once, and 7 through 10 for me is I would recommend it. Go see it. So I've seen it. You guys really don't have to. It's not even one of these that you throw on while you're doing the laundry or something. Just, trust me, you don't have to see it. I mean, maybe if you're a little more artsy fartsy, or or you're in film school, and I don't mean that bad for anybody who has ever went to film school.
Alex,
I just haven't, and I like to see people get their head ripped off, and that's it. So
I think this is worth a watch. I really do. If you're a horror fan and you like conceptual stuff at all, or just art, I think it's worth a watch, because people have really divided opinions on it. So I say, give it a watch on your own. See what you think about it. Maybe put yourself in the position that you're kind of experiencing art, and see what you think of it. I've heard either people who really hate it or people who really love it. So I think it's worth a watch, at least for that. Make your own
I really haven't found anybody who's like, oh, it was okay. They either hate it or they really like it.
And I feel like it is one of those, like, for anyone who does choose to watch it, after like 10 to 15 minutes, what the movie's gonna be, and I feel like you can probably tell pretty early on if you're gonna like it or not. And so if someone's watching it 10, 15 minutes in, they're not liking it, you can turn it off. Like it's fine. But I do like that it doesn't trick you into this. Like, it doesn't trick you into being a super slow paced movie from the get-go. The opening shot, it's like, okay. Thank you for being upfront with what you are. But I did appreciate that it didn't bamboozle me.
Good point. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, guys. It has been a blast to have both of you on. We'll have to have you back on again, so keep us posted on all of that. Everybody definitely stay tuned, for Field of Screams. We'll share the link and everything in the bio here. So thank you so much. To close this out, I'll say, if you ever find yourself in a horror movie, don't have sex, don't do drugs,
and certainly don't die. We'll see you next time.
Bye.